Well, let's get straight to our big story tonight. In a choreographed appearance before the media, Pranab Mukherjee and P. Chidambaram stood side by side this evening, with Mr. Mukherjee breaking his silence on the controversial 2G note. He said the interpretations in the note do not reflect his views, that it was simply a factual interministerial background note. Mr. Chidambaram, speaking right after him, said that he accepted this statement and that the matter is now closed.
A number of stories on 2G spectrum had appeared in the media in January 2011. A view was taken that a harmonized note based on fact should be produced for use by various representatives of the government. A view was taken that a harmonized note based on fact should be produced for use by various representatives of the government. A group of officers prepared an interministerial background paper which was sent to PMO on 25th March 2011. A group of officers prepared an interministerial background paper which was sent to PMO on 25th March 2011. Apart from the factual background, the paper contains certain inferences and interpretations which do not reflect my views. Apart from the factual background, the paper contains certain inferences and interpretations which do not reflect my views. The policy of the government in 2007-2008 was continuation of the policy adopted in October 2003 and as reiterated by PRAI. The policy of the government in 2007-2008 was continuation of the policy adopted in October 2003 and as reiterated by PRAI.
I am happy with the statement read by my senior and distinguished colleague, the Finance Minister, Shri Pranab Mukherjee. I accept the statement. As far as all of us in government are concerned, the matter is closed.
And that was the moment the media had been waiting for. Sandeep Pukar, my colleague, joins us now for more on that big story. And Sandeep, there was also a 30-minute meeting after that between the Prime Minister and the Congress President. Is this crisis, has this now blown over for now, or do you think that there's still more to come? Especially because we have a Supreme Court judgment also awaited on whether Mr. Chidambaram should be probed in this.
I think, yes, that it's a very significant meeting, the meeting that you talked about, 30-minute meeting between the Prime Minister and Congress President Sonia Gandhi. And this meeting, by the way, happened only after this, this show of camaraderie or, show of being together was played out in the media live on national television. But as far as the crisis being over is concerned, there are two aspects to the crisis, Nidhi. One is the political aspect, where the two ministers seem to have been at war with each other. At least the Congress crisis manager seems to have bridged this gap, the fact that they could, get two of them together first at the Prime Minister's residence and then the joint press conference, which incidentally we broke the story this morning that there would be a press conference. There were some doubts in between, but eventually it was all as per the script that joint press conference happened. So for now, the political crisis insofar as the war within is concerned, that has been that crisis has been crossed, that has been tackled. But I think the legal troubles are still far from over, because the Supreme Court is hearing this case, the trial court is hearing this case. So it entirely depends on how the court, observes this matter, and if they make an adverse remark against the Home Minister, then it could be an entirely new story. And of course, don't forget the opposition and the members of the JPC, the Joint Parliamentary Committee, how they take up this note, the interministerial note, and what they make out of it. So I think only one part of it is over. The war within is over. But clearly political problems as well as legal problems are still to be tackled.
And maybe that war within is, perhaps some would say, over only, at least publicly. Sandeep, thanks very much for joining us. And that brings us to our big debate tonight. Minister versus minister. Has the government been able to contain the damage because of this very apparent feud now between its number 2 and number 3? Do tell us what you think. Well, joining us on the panel tonight, we have the Congress's spokesperson, Renuka Chaudhary. From the BJP, we have Mr. Chandan Mitra. Our expert panel in the studio here, we have the consulting editor of the Times of India, Mr. Dilip Pargaonkar, the political editor of the Hindustan Times, Mr. Pankaj Vora. Also joining us tonight, Mr. D. Raja, the National Secretary of the CPI. I'd like to actually begin with our editors first and get their first impressions of what has happened. Here this was a choreographed appearance, as I said earlier, as well, and perhaps reflecting the confusion that this government is going through. It couldn't even be organized properly. You had those chaotic scenes outside North Block. At the end of the day, after all the meetings that took place today and the transatlantic effort we saw being put into this, what you had was a 3-paragraph statement by Pranab Mukherjee and a very short 2-line statement by Mr. Chidambaram. Does this reflect to you that this crisis is actually over?
It reflects first and foremost the fact that Mr. Chidambaram has been personally vindicated. Right from the beginning, he was saying, you can be critical of my policies, you can be critical of my judgments, but I don't want any innuendo concerning my character. And I believe the statement that was read out by Mr. Mukherjee today clears doubts on that score. Secondly, Mr. Mukherjee himself has, in a sense, distanced his ministry from that particular note, saying that these were interministerial inputs, these were factual positions, and the question still remains, what about that particular sentence? Who put that in? At what level? I mean, I don't know whether you've read the note carefully, but it's a poorly drafted note. And I'm not even sure whether the facts that have been listed are accurate or not. But the fact is, as of today, a truce has been called. They have put up a united front, but I don't think that that's the end of the story, far from it, because, as your correspondent just pointed out, matters are going to come very soon in the courts, and you can trust the opposition to keep on hammering away at that particular sentence in that particular note.
NDTV's cricket app, Android and iPhone. Fastest scorecard, special analysis, and much more. Download free. ndtv.com/apps.